Shall we start with the government and the weather? I mean, we've seen over the last few days Rachel Reid's under pressure, the economy hasn't been growing, global bond market turbulence, but the story that we're reporting today, an amber weather warning across the country. Jonathan Swain is with Elaine Yates. We're going to be talking to her later in the programme, who is keeping her temperature in her home at 13 degrees, not turning the oven on because she's so worried about paying for her heating bills, and she's lost the winter fuel allowance. And this will be a story repeated across the country. People who are just above pension credit, but still struggling with bills, and now turning down the heating.
Well, Rachel Reid will say what's happening nationally, bond markets, cost of borrowing going up, is why she had to cut the winter fuel allowance. But then Elaine is the consequence of that. Somebody sitting at home in the cold when they should be warmer, and it's not only unpleasant, it's a threat to your health.
Yeah.
That is the problem with it. And politics is all about choices, and I do think Rachel Reid, the Chancellor, made the wrong choice on the winter fuel allowance, because there are many people who lost it, 10 million people, who just have very small occupational pensions. They are just over the breadline. And if you're a pensioner, you've worked all your life, most of them, and they paid into the system. They expected the system to come to their aid and their help when they were retired, and it's not.
I was in a hardware store the other day, and I heard someone saying we've sold out of hot water bottles.
Really?
People are buying hot water bottles, I think, because fill it up, hot water, go to bed.
Yeah, and it's cheaper than if you put the radiators on.
Can't put the heating on.
Yeah, this is also an issue in terms of admin, because Elaine Yates, who we're going to be speaking to, as Ed says, 75 years old, has lost her winter fuel payment. Now, she applied for pension credit because she is just a couple of pounds off the threshold. She received a letter saying, yes, you can have it. She then was on the helpline, and the DWP staff member said, no, you don't qualify. She's then on Good Morning Britain back in November and heard from the DWP saying, oh, actually, maybe you are eligible for pension credit. And the online calculator says yes. So that's back in November. She applied more than a month ago and hasn't heard anything since. I mean...
That is just appalling.
It's shocking.
Yeah, that's...
Because either she's eligible, pay her the money, or she's not eligible, and make it clear.
Yeah.
Which is cruel in itself, because,
there is a formula.
There is a strong view that it shouldn't have been taken away in the first place.
Absolutely. An overwhelming view it shouldn't have been taken away, because these people are choosing between heating and eating. It's scandalous in 2025.
There's two issues around Elaine, I would say, here. One is they've got to get it right.
Yeah.
They've got to do the sums correctly. So if she's entitled to it, she gets it, and she gets it paid promptly, rather than saying yes, no, and then you don't get anything. The second is it's what they call a cliff edge benefit.
Yeah.
If you go a pound over the limit, you lose it all. All your 200, all your 300 pound goes. And you only need a very small occupational pension. You can be on something like 11,500 pounds a year, 220, 230 pounds a week. I don't know the exact figures, but they're in that ballpark. And you don't get it.
No.
But what type of life can you have if you're surviving on that amount of money per week?
Andrew, the politics behind this seems so naive, because the government comes in July. They very quickly sort of put their stake in the ground and say, we're taking away winter fuel allowance from millions of pensioners, some of whom will be literally just over the threshold, very, very, very low incomes. They claim, of course, the poorest pensioners are still protected, but you've only got to be just above the poorest and you still consider yourself pretty poorly off. They take away this money, you're hurtling towards winter, and then you get a cold snap. I mean, it was already so controversial, so cruel, and then you get a period where it's freezing cold, and you have to justify taking away the money from the least well off.
And we're only in January, so that we could have another cold spell, February, March. The Chancellor was trying to appear tough. She was trying to tell the markets, I'm tough, I'll make the right, hard decisions. We do want a Chancellor to make tough decisions because the debt this country's in is unacceptably high. But this was the wrong one.
Yeah,
and when so many people have told her it's wrong, when charities have told them, when Age UK say they're choosing between heating and eating, when their own backbenchers saying, for God's sake, woman, don't do it.
But it's...
A brave and courageous Chancellor admits they've got it wrong and says, I've heard, I'm listening, I'm restoring it.
We disagree on most things, actually, but on this we agree. And when she announced it in the summer, like, she had £1.5 billion going out the door, so she thought she can just stop it rather than trying to take a few % off here and there. I'll stop this £1.5 billion going out the door. But she was relying on ignorance to sell it. And the ignorance was, oh, millionaires don't need it. Well, millionaires don't need it. That's quite right.
Yeah.
But 10 million people are losing it, including people on very small occupational pensions. And that 300 quid is so important in the winter because it gives them the confidence and the ability to stay warm. Because there'll be some people who can afford to stay warm, but psychologically, I've lost my winter fuel allowance, so they don't turn off the heat. And then they put their health and their lives at risk.
This is such an important point, though, and it goes to Andrew's point about the U-turn as well. We have Pat McFadden coming on to the programme later.
Yeah.
Cabinet Office Minister.
Tipped to be the next Chancellor if she gets
to be the next Chancellor, according to the Sunday Times. Very powerful figure. Was in the Labour government 20 years ago when the winter fuel allowance was introduced 25 years ago. They don't know how to explain this. And if you're in government and you haven't got a good explanation for something, then you get into real trouble. If they were to say, look, I'm really sorry, but Elaine and people on £12,000, £13,000 a year don't need the winter allowance, and that's why we've taken it away. I mean, at least that would be, clear.
Yes.
I mean, I think it would be wrong. But when they say we had no choice...
That's right, they did have a choice.
You did have a choice, because they chose to protect other things and not that.
Yeah.
When they say, I'm afraid the public finances required it, well, they didn't require that decision. And at the moment... And then when they say, but we have the triple lock, we're raising people's pensions, well, that's all very well, but that was in the manifesto, and Elaine thought she was going to keep the winter allowance. If you can't, in government, explain why you've done something which is going to be a real problem week after week, then you're in trouble.
Then
and I don't think they have no way of explaining why they've done this, and that's why it's so bad.
And Ed, we've talked about it on this programme before, because I first read about it in the Mail in 2017 when Theresa May's government considered this. Labour published research which showed if something like this was done, taking the winter fuel away, it would kill potentially 4,500 more pensioners a year. How is Labour now thinking that's an acceptable policy 7 years later?
But I think
people have got older and more frail. Thousands will die, and it's on their watch.
But didn't they start off, Kevin, thinking that the argument, people don't need it other than the poorest, so that was an argument which would work, would be a good argument, and they're not using that argument anymore because they know it doesn't work.
No, because it's all... because it's not true, because you've gone down so low. And if you took it off millionaires, as I saw ignorant people saying at the time, they don't need it.
We say the King doesn't need it.
No,
Tony Blair doesn't need it.
There's a lot of things Tony Blair and the King don't need.
The last government to chart they get away from top-rate taxpayers. They could have done the same with the winter allowance.
You could, but you'd have saved less. Yeah. And she's taken out a chainsaw and cut it, and apart from the very, very, very poorest pensioners who have to go through the most incredible loops and filling in forms and answering questions to get it. And then you get Elaine, who, yes, you can have it, no, you can't have it. I mean, it's just...
I'm afraid the word is callous. It's callous.
Yeah.
That's the word, callous.
We're talking about it, though, but doesn't it strike you, Andrew? It was just interesting to me in the last week. Obviously, we've been talking about the grooming gangs. I've not heard either the Conservatives or Reform talking very much about this issue.
I suppose it's people that Elaine do the talking for them. I mean, the Tories and the Reforms have both said they utterly oppose getting rid of winter fuel. They've both made that clear. And I think I heard Mel Stride referring to it yesterday, actually, the Shadow Chancellor. But Reform gangs, you saw a poll at the weekend, 76% of people think they should have been a public inquiry. So they were doing the job of an opposition.
Kami Badenoch, now Tory leader, in the past had questioned the universal payment of the winter fuel allowance herself. There are some in the Tory party, there'll be some in Reform who say, we want means testing, your income's assessed before you get it.
Once you go down, choosing not to pay for this.
Once you go down that route, then it's where do you set it? And their argument gets more complicated. I've always just been progressive universalism. the more you earn, the more you pay in tax, and we all get something out of the system. It's very, very simple to administer, because means testing is always mean on the edges. That's always happens.
I'm so pleased you used that phrase.
Oh, I know.
That was my phrase.
Which phrase?
Progressive universalism.
Progressive universalism.
Oh, OK.
Oh, no.
It rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
catchy.
At 6:44 in the morning.
Universal help for everybody.
Didn't you have a
Progressive,
predistribution?
more for those who need it most.
Didn't you have a predistribution type phase?
Oh, no, please.
With Michael Heseltine picked up and really gave you a kicking.
Do you want to remind
What was
viewers of
it?
that one?
That was post-neoclassical endogenous growth theory.
That's it, yeah.
That's right.
Trips off.
Come on, now.
Easy for you to
People ask me
say.
about it all the time. All the time.
It's sound bites.
Maybe, Ed,
People say
you're not the person to advise this government on communication strategy. You're going to use extraordinary phrases like that.
Could you just say it once more?
Post-neoclassical endogenous growth theory.
Yeah.
Oh, why didn't it catch
That
on?
was spared in the winter
Having
fuel
written
controversy.
it, I then cut it from the speech, and Gordon Brown wrote, "Put back the theory." I said, "Put it back in," he said. I actually was trying to take it out, because I thought it was a bit...
Shall we get back to what people might be talking about in the dog and duck?
Michael Heseltine said it's not brown, it's balls, didn't he?
He did, yeah. The highlight of his career. Yeah.
Right, we have a crisis in A&E. And we've got this new research, I think it's come from the Liberal Democrats, backed up by the British Medical Association. This is that a record 500,000 patients languishing on trolleys in A&E for 12 hours or more last year. Professor Phil Banfield, chair of the British Medical Association, describes corridor care, which is what we're now staffing for, apparently, in some hospitals, as undignified and unsafe, warning scenes inside NHS hospitals are now akin to those seen in developing countries. Hundreds of patients are suffering avoidable harm and deaths every week, and some are dying before even being seen by medics.
The idea,
A&E no longer a place where you might get seen before,
and the
before you
idea
die.
that a hospital is now advertising for nurses to work specifically in corridor care is shocking.
This is the Whittington Hospital in North London.
It isn't warm enough. You're liable to infection. No chance of any rest. Terrible.
12 hours. I mean, 12 hours, right? If you were there for half an hour, you've arrived, you've been assessed, you're going to be put in a ward. That's fine. 12 hours. You can have your breakfast. You can have your lunch. You can have your tea. You might have had your dinner. The kids might have been to school and back. You might have returned from work. I mean, that's a terrible period to be lying. You're going to be concerned, you're ill, you're sick.
Yeah, because you don't know that after 12 hours you're going to be moved.
No,
you just know it's an endless, open-ended wait.
But the very striking thing about the Lib Dem figures is, 10 years ago, the number of people in A&E waiting over 12 hours was 1,300. And now it's 518,000. So it's gone up 400 times. It tells you the scale of the extra pressure and the problems in the National Health Service.
And a lot of it...
1,000 to 500,000.
A lot of people are going to A&E now because they can't get to see their GP. No. That's a big part of the problem. And still, there's still that problem. There are thousands and thousands of older people in beds who shouldn't be in them in hospital, who should be in the community.
The Tories ran down the NHS and put it under the tightest financial straitjacket in its history. It's Labour's problem now. Labour's got to solve it, but it's inherited this problem from the Tories, and that can be explained this year. It won't be next year if they haven't made progress in reducing those waits.
Yeah, and meanwhile, we have this A&E nurse at the Royal Oldham Hospital in Greater Manchester, stabbed over the weekend.
Unbelievable.
In her 50s, she suffered life-changing injuries. She was stabbed in front of co-workers and patients. And your report in The Mirror, by Lucy Thornton, your reporter, Kevin, says it was said to have been a row over waiting times. That is the allegation. We don't know all the reasons, and of course now there is a man under arrest, so there's very
absolutely horrific. You think what an extraordinary job nurses do every day for not enough money, and now they've got to put up with that.
They are key frontline workers, and you expect them to be under stress.
Well, they're going to have to start wearing stag jackets in the hospital.
Do not expect people to be... Nobody should go to work and face that risk or suffer that. And
that's someone's mum.
You know, that's happened in the NHS. I also think of the off-duty police officer in North Yorkshire who stopped. She was off-duty, stopped to help two motorists, And then
On the verge.
a lorry comes along and her and one of the drivers are killed. And you just think, these key workers, we often criticise them for, reasons, some legitimate, some less legitimate. We've got to remember they're there for us.
Yeah.
That's
We've
why
got
they
to be
call
there
these
for them.
A&Es war zones in more ways than one, because of the appalling behaviour of some of the people
Well,
in
they're
them.
frightening. Some people, some drink, some drugs, some mental
Yeah.
illness. Some people are just nasty.
We've all seen it.
I don't know if you've been out driving in the dark recently. I did quite a lot of driving in the dark over the weekend. I found it very draining, actually.
Yeah,
it's quite
it
hard
is.
work.
Yep.
The increase in road furniture, I find, particularly in London, it means you have to... Obviously, you're always concentrating.
Road furniture?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, it's the increase in bike lanes, of course,
Oh, I
which of
see.
course protects cyclists. But there's quite a lot of these kind of new bollards up to mark out cycle lanes. They've reduced the width of normal roads. Then you have strange sort of configurations of bus lanes with cycle lanes.
Yeah.
And they've changed the markings on roads but haven't properly painted over the original markings. So you're working quite hard anyway
You are.
to make sure
Yeah.
that you're safe. And we have an increase, I would say, in obviously electric scooters, and quite often people on electric scooters are not wearing bright clothing.
And they're a menace.
Or
So
anything
it's
at all.
quite-
And they're a menace.
Going at considerable speed.
Yeah.
Yes, and then you've got a lot of pedestrians walking into the road as well. So anyway, I would just say it was quite hard work.
Yeah.
Not helped by the brightness of headlamps
terrible.
coming towards me. It's a huge headache, apparently. According to road safety campaigners, 3 in 4 drivers say they've been dazzled by lights, and they were a factor in 216 collisions back in 2023. And apparently the problem seems to be LED lights.
We've had imposed on us. My
yeah.
partner will not drive at night anymore. Because
Really?
too dazzling, finds it too dangerous, can't cope with it. Tried all sorts of glasses to drive at night, he's given up.
What I find extraordinary is they aren't
he's young.
regulated.
Yeah.
No?
He's 50.
Yeah.
They say it's the manufacturer's responsibility,
Yeah.
but surely there have to be rules about it.
Well,
I would, yeah.
I think they're a hazard, because people are probably going to crash because they can't see
We
properly.
can imagine on country roads,
Yeah.
which are very narrow, and you're coming along, and somebody's hurtling towards you
Yeah.
the other end and dazzling you.
Yet the government's commissioned independent research to better understand the root causes of headlamp glare and develop potential countermeasures. And that work is due to deliver this summer.
Right.
So hopefully by this next winter, there will be an issue dealt with and fewer collisions because of the brightness of the lights.
Corporations, companies taking liberties. Another example, Lupa Pizza in Norwich.
Oh, yeah.
Lupa Pizza in Norwich is charging customers £100 for their Hawaiian pizza on the Deliveroo
Expensive.
because they disapprove so strongly of putting pineapple on the pizza. The pizzeria, where the average base costs £11.70, has told customers, yeah, for £100 you can have it. Order the champagne too. Go on, you monster.
What?
So basically, they're saying they're only going to serve you Hawaiian pizza if you're willing to pay £100.
I wonder how many people have bought it.
They're saying we're not selling them anymore. That's what they're doing, aren't they?
What's
Yeah.
wrong with pineapple on pizza?
Well, how long you
Oh,
got?
come on.
Well, I never really
You
eat
serious?
pizza. I never eat pizza.
Well, obviously.
The Hawaiian is ham and pineapple.
Yeah.
When you go into, I remember as an MP going to Asda, going to the pizza kind of thing and saying, what's your most popular pizza? And they said, the Hawaiian is really popular.
Right.
Apparently, loads of people like pineapple on pizza. Are they mad?
Well, but the thing is,
Well, let them.
why is there an
Why-
issue with putting things on pizza? Like, my favourite pizza is a Fiorentina. That's spinach and egg.
Good.
And I'm
Yeah, but-
sure that back in the day when the Italians
Yeah.
developed pizza, they didn't think people
Ed
would
was
be
probably
putting
appalled.
a poached
but-
egg on
Yeah,
a pizza.
Ed would be appalled.
Well, look,
purists.
I'm not appalled by anchovies, mozzarella,
Egg?
you know, egg. I quite like an egg. I quite like a cappucciosa.
Right, so if people are
However-
allowed to have eggs and perhaps
No, sorry.
hot chilies, why can't they have pineapple?
Because it's disgusting.
Right, that's
What?
your personal opinion.
Absolutely.
But why,
I
on
am totally
principle,
with-
can't they have it?
I'm totally with Chef Quinn Ginaran, who said there is definitely a lot of controversy about this, but he just basically says it's appalling. and
He's a
right.
snob.
What do you mean he's a snob?
He's a snob.
People have all sorts of things on their pizza.
But if people want to have pineapple on it, why not?
He's having a laugh. That's what he's doing.
And he's getting a lot of publicity for Lupa Pizza in Norwich.
Yes.
Exactly. But if people didn't experiment with food, we'd still be eating raw, woolly mammoth
right.
potatoes.
Francis Wolff says, I absolutely loathe pineapple on a pizza, and he's the co-owner of Lupa Pizza, so he knows what he's talking
Well, if he
about.
doesn't like it, he doesn't have to eat it.
Yeah.
There we are, end of. Somebody else wants it, no problem.
£100.
Yeah, because they're pricing people out, aren't they? 'Cause
Yeah,
they don't
I think-
want to put pineapple on their pizzas.
I think they may be trying to get us to talk about it on Good Morning Britain,
And
they have succeeded.
We have fallen for it.
We have.
We have
Congratulations,
fallen.
Lupa
well
Pizza
done,
in Norwich.
Well done. Yeah,
Other pizza restaurants are available in Norwich, I presume.
Would you have strawberries on a pizza?
The next...
Would you have a,
Ed,
you know...
the next pizza...
Tomatoes on a pizza, they're a
Of
fruit,
course
aren't they?
they would.
Ed, I'm going to tell you. The next pizza I have, I'm going to have pineapple
Would
on
you
it,
have
and I'm going to take a
kumquat?
photograph of it.
There we go.
I'm going to have a pineapple on it, take a photograph of it, and I bet I enjoy every bit of
bit
it.
of broccoli
And
on
we'll,
your
I'm
pizza.
not
we'll
a
display
food
that tomorrow.
Exposing
I am
yourself
not
as a
a
non-pizza
food snob.
eater in the
Food
process.
snob.
I mean, is caviar.
He'll have-
you know,
no.
Kevin,
Food
Andrew,
snob.
thank you very much
Hawaiian
indeed.
pizza and a glass of bolly.